What's good? Surely there's not a single Raptor fan who could be upset by this game, right? I mean, let's be honest. This is exactly what you want. You want a competitive game. You want a Jakob Poeltl 3 to start out the game. Oh my goodness. That happen? That was real life. We got the tape. We could definitely look at that. You want a Jakob Poeltl coast to coast slam dunk like he's Dr. J. You want a little bit of that. You want a little bit of razzle dazzle into the fourth quarter. You want a lead, and then you want to evaporate that lead as you hold out your starters and you pull your lineups. And you definitely want a game winning 3-point attempt by Orlando Robinson. That's definitely great. A little bit of history tonight. Scottie Barnes with 6 steals, first time in his career to hit that mark. He had a pretty great all around game. I think he really drove the defensive intensity that the Raptors played with. And I think, honestly, offensively, it was a little bit surprised, at just how quickly he got into the middle. A couple turnovers late, a couple sloppy turnovers really late. Didn't deal super well with the zone. The shot is still somewhat Pandora's box mystery right now for Scottie. Good news for the Raptors is they did get Ochai Agbaji back, and he played really well. Let's take a look at this. It's not going to be a super long live, I don't assume. But if you'd like to call in, please do call in. Conversations are always better than monologues. So definitely we can talk about this. But, the man of the night, certainly you would say, is Jakob Poeltl. I thought he was really good tonight. Overall, this was not an easy matchup for Yak. I know it sounds crazy to say that a veteran, who's damn near 30, would have some trouble against, someone like a rookie like Donovan Clingan. But Donovan Clingan is great. And Donovan Clingan had 7 offensive rebounds tonight. He was a behemoth. And, he had 3 blocks, 5 points. So, he's not doing a lot offensively for you. The shot is still a little bit of a mystery with him. Will it come? Will it not? We saw a little bit of that last year, when he was winning a championship with UConn. But man, like if it works out, they really do have a franchise level center, a guy who could start for 10 years. So, health will be the big mystery. I think Jamal Shed, let's talk about storylines in this game. You got a rookie point guard in Jamal Shed going up against a second year point guard in Scoot Henderson. Now, Scoot played 30 minutes. He had an abysmal game. Now, I'm very pro Scoot Henderson. No Scoot slander here, but he had about as bad a game as he's had since the calendar turned to 2025. Like, he's been on a bit of a tear. I just thought tonight he looked really disorganized, really discombobulated. Felt like the Raptors really rushed him, and at times he was just rushing himself. He was a huge part of their turnover problems. He wasn't alone. Obviously, Shaden Sharp had 4 turnovers. Denny Avdia had 3 turnovers, but I thought Scoot was really bad tonight. So 5 points, 5 assists, 5 rebounds, and 6 turnovers on 2 for 12 shooting. That's almost as bad as the game Cade Cunningham had last night. Little bit of a but okay. All right. Off the bench, they did get some, meaningful contributions, but overall, I think it was the Raptors bench that are the real heroes of this game because, oh my God, they got absolutely nothing off that bench tonight. I mean, they got some rebounding from Colin Castleton. Yes. They got some really overall good box score play from AJ Lawson. Yes, despite the cold shooting. They got some competitive defense from Garrett Temple, who was guarding guards at the top for some reason. But overall, it was basically when the Raptors went to that bench unit, took Jamal Shed, took Scottie Barnes, took Jakob Poeltl off the floor, that the whole thing just fell apart. And, to close the game, really the one starter who was on the court was Jamison Battle. And I thought he played all right. He had a really big 3 late, but overall he fouls out of the game. And yeah, I mean, in terms of takeaways, it's good to see Ochai Agbaji back. Really good to see him back. He was moving really well defensively. I thought that was great. Colin Castleton, despite the 5 turnovers, 2 of which were travels, so it wasn't like live ball turnovers, but like just somewhat sloppy footwork. Orlando Robinson really struggled with the length. And, if you want to say there's a hero of this game from the Portland Trailblazers side, maybe you could say it was 6 minutes of Matisse Thybulle. You know, I thought he really mucked up the game. I think he really was a positive for the Blazers off the bench. In his 6 minutes, they were +7. and most of those minutes came in the second half. Actually, all of them came in the second half. He drew a huge round of applause when he came into the game. So I thought he was really good. Overall, like the shooting of Anthony Simons late, I mean, that was great too. Tamani Kamara hitting, took 10 threes. Kamara came into the league last year as the 52nd overall pick. This has been what a revelation for the Blazers. Like they have a guy who probably on the open market right now would command like $26 million, and they found him in the second round last year. He is really turning into one of the premier 3-and-D guys in the league, and that was on nobody's bingo card coming in. Another huge value contract that they have on a descending 4-year deal from the Washington Wizards, a player that I am super high on, and that's Deni Avdija. And nothing easy for the Raptors perimeter players tonight, right? When you were playing against Deni Avdija, Tamani Kamara, you got Matisse Thybulle coming off the bench. Chris Murray's a big dude, right? Scoot Henderson's all right. Maybe he's not the greatest defender, and Anthony Simons is a total pylon, and Shaedon Sharpe has a lot of issues defensively, but all in all, they're a positive defensive team. And then they got the big man in the middle playing 30 minutes and Donovan Clingan. Shoot. I mean, the Portland Trailblazers' future is very bright. I mean, they were missing some serious salaries. They were missing some of their highest paid players tonight. They were missing Jeremy Grant. They were missing DeAndre Ayton. They were missing Robert Williams. So it's not like the Raptors are the only team missing players. The Raptors were missing players themselves, however, and I think that is really worth noting. The Raptors were missing RJ Barrett. They were missing Emmanuel Quickley. They walked in after the Cleveland Cavaliers loss to the Orlando Magic earlier today. The Raptors were technically the hottest team in the Eastern Conference coming into this game. So majorly clutch loss. And on the other end of it, the Portland Trailblazers had lost 5 straight. So this was not going to be a straight loss. This was never going to be a loss that you're going to have to work for this loss. And the Raptors really worked for this loss. Case in point, they pulled Scottie Barnes from the game at about the 7 or 8 minute mark, if I'm not mistaken. There were 2 stretches of this game that the Raptors really dominated, and that was the beginning of the first and then the beginning, middle, end of the third, where I think those 2 quarters, the Raptors really dominated. They won those quarters 27 to 19 in the first, and then 30 to 25 in the second. Portland won quarters 2 and 4, and that's really the story of the game, right? And you got to look at it. Jamal Shead is plus 21 in 25 minutes. Scottie Barnes, once again, under 30 minutes. Jamison Battle, Jakob Poeltl, under 30 minutes. The Raptors are playing their less effective players, more minutes. And no, it's not. There's no reason that on a night like this that your 2 minutes leaders should be AJ Lawson and Orlando Robinson. There's no reason for that. There's no reason for that other than the tank. That's the only reason. The fact that, Colin Castleton is getting more minutes than Jakob Poeltl is hurting you, as evidenced by the fact that there is a differential of those players being on off of 27 points. So basically, this is about as stealthily and as ethically as you can tank in the league. You're not completely just holding out and throwing in the towel in the first quarter. You're giving yourself a chance. You're still giving fans who came and to watch the game, you're still giving them a look at the all-star player that they might have come to watch in Scottie Barnes, although that's pretty ambitious, Scottie Barnes fan club in Portland. But, they're still getting to watch a relatively competitive game. They're getting to see some big shots down the stretch. I mean, this is what we want, Look, none of us believe that the Raptors organizationally, internally at least, are looking at these games like, okay, guys, we got to go out and try to win these games. Like, enough with that bullshit. That's not happening. And we know that's not happening. But from the perspective of the fans, right, you can't just come out and lose by 30, 40 points to inferior competition. That's just embarrassing, and that's demoralizing, and there's nothing to be gained from that. I mean, as much as you might be trying to use a microscope to glean some sort of positive takeaways from losing, a 3-point game to the Portland Trailblazers, there are some positives. Those pull-up threes from Jamal Shead are positives. That's not something he was able to do like 7 months ago. That's not something he was doing last year for Houston, but he's doing that now. You're getting some more primacy and reps for Ochai Agbaji, who probably is in your plans going into next season. Now, I was wondering why you might be wanting to look at some of these, end of bench guys. And I think one of the biggest reasons, again, is the Raptors don't have a lot of contractual or money flexibility going into next season. And so it does help to figure out which of these guys can actually step up, which of these guys can actually play a major role. And who knows, maybe it's for the Raptors, maybe it's for the Raptors 905. You need stability, man. It's not to say, oh yeah, I guess they think Colin Castleton's going to be their backup center next year. No, not necessarily that, but you are seeing what this guy can be for you, right? And I do believe that at some point, if you start to really buy into Ochai, AJ, guys like this, okay, cool, right? What if you start to buy into Jamal Shed? Does that change your perspective on what your draft needs are? Like, so much of what you want to draft is going to come down to best player available. I know that. But if it comes down to a complete toss up between two players, does it help to know that you're pretty secure at the backup point guard spot? That's not really a position of need. Do you want to go into next year with Jamal Shed as your de facto backup point guard and then find out he can't hang? No, you don't want to do that. So you want to see all of that. I also think, the expansion of Jakob Poeltl's game this season has been somewhat understated and a little bit underrated because, it's just like the Chris Boucher expansion of Chris Boucher's shot selection kind of taming out a little bit. We don't usually pay attention to 29 and 30-year-olds getting better, 31-year-olds in the case of Chris Boucher, but we should. We should care that the 30, 31-year-olds on our roster are getting better, becoming better leaders, becoming better players. And, for Jakob Poeltl, he's kind of been typecast into a very one-dimensional offensive role for most of his career with Toronto as a backup and then, over in San Antonio. But now in his second stint with Toronto, I think with Darko Rajakovic, I think you're seeing a lot more of a Domantas Sabonis meets Isaiah Hartenstein type of role, Like you're seeing a lot more playmaking responsibilities. You're seeing just a little bit more, a few more touches. Now we're seeing like the range expanding a little bit. We saw him take a jumper, from the mid range. Now we're seeing him take a jumper from, the 3-point line. Okay, it's never going to be a huge part of his game. Can it become like a 1 to 2 attempts per game kind of situation? That changes a lot. I mean, I'm gonna be honest, he's never going to be guarded from out there. That ugly ass jump shot, he's never going to be guarded. But if he could hit him at like a 31% clip on 2 a game, I feel like that would be a very positive development for Jakob Poeltl. Why is Darko not playing Chris Boucher? Well, I would assume it is one of 2 reasons. One, they don't have plans for him, or 2, they already know what their plans are for him. So if you already know what Chris Boucher is, and you know that he's definitively better than Colin Castleton and Orlando Robinson, which I hope no one's debating, he is, then him playing right now doesn't really do you any benefit, does it? You're kind of depriving yourself of an ability to see players that you don't know as well because you've had Chris in the system for a long time. You obviously know what he provides. And then on the other hand, you're playing the better players, so you're actually worsening your draft odds. So I totally get it. I can understand, I can empathize with the people who feel like it's a little bit of a slap in the face, though. I totally get that. In terms of the team stats tonight, overall, the Raptors do not shoot well from 3. Surprise, surprise, 32.3%. Just not an overall great game from them. The Blazers were like super ice cold from 3 for most of this game, and then they started hitting them late. Overall, both teams shoot relatively similarly from the free throw line, get there relatively the same amount of times, exact same offensive rebounds. This was a close game. The Raptors do get a lot more assists, and I think sometimes the Portland Trailblazers got into that sort of mindset of my turn, your turn, one-on-one type of stuff. It is interesting to note the Raptors did not have a single block tonight, and the Blazers had 7, including the crucial block by Matisse Thybulle to end the game, which was very cool. The Raptors win the turnover differential, and they somehow, even with Donovan Clingan inside, end up like winning the points in the paint battle, which is amazing. It's really amazing. And I think a lot of that came down to like Scottie Barnes sort of driving into the paint, Jakob Poeltl being a force down there. And I just think the Blazers settled for a lot of jumpers. Like, I think that's just kind of it. They settled for a lot of jumpers. They took 53s tonight, 50. And honestly, if I have one takeaway from this game, let's say one big thing that I could say, like, this was great, apart from the Scottie 6 steals and Jamal Shedd's pull-up threes and Jakob Poeltl taking a corner three to open up the game on a set design play. I would say it's the defense overall. And I can't just say it's all Scottie, because there were plenty of defensive possessions where Scottie was on the bench. And I was just like, wow, that's impressive. The connectivity defensively. I don't care if it's Colin Castleton, AJ Lawson, uh, Jamal Shedd, who was awesome, Garrett Temple, Jakob Poeltl, Orlando Robinson, AJ Lawson, Ochai Agbaji, Scottie Barnes. Like, they all connected. They were all playing good defense tonight. And I got to tell you, sometimes, you see this team play without their defensive liabilities. And let's just be kind of frank right now. There's a few defensive liabilities on this team, namely, although he's been trying a lot better lately, RJ Barrett, namely Grady Dick, namely Emmanuel Quickley, who can be a turnstile at times. And sometimes when you play without those guys, you see just what replacing bad defenders with average defenders. Because I don't think anyone thinks Garrett Temple or AJ Lawson are lockdown defenders. These are not lockdown defenders. These are not lockdown defenders. There are probably 15 to 18 players in the draft who at 18, 19 years old right now are better defenders than those guys. You're also not playing some of your better defenders. I mean, let's just be real about that. Jonathan Mobo is one of your better defenders. You're not playing him, So I think the Raptors probably need to convert. And I know offense has been a bit of an issue all year, but I do think sometimes defense and offense are more connected than we give it credit for. And I do think that it would be really great for the Raptors to get a player like a Toumani Camara. And I'm not saying specifically Toumani Camara, but hey, maybe that's an archetype you need to focus on in the draft. A player who can lock up, take some of that load off of Scottie, allow Scottie to be more of a roamer on defense, a la a Giannis Antetokounmpo, because, it's not lost on me that very often 3-4 minutes of that exerted burst at his size, and suddenly Scottie's a little bit tired. There was a possession to end the second quarter going into the half. Raptors are tied up at the half, and you see Garrett Temple bring the ball up and take the final shot as Scottie is sort of huffing and trying to catch his breath. Like, that probably shouldn't be happening, but you understand and you empathize with that happening because he's so go defensively. Like, there were plays tonight where I think he was in 4 places at once, where he's guarding the player out top, guarding the screen, working around the screen, and then rotating over to the corner shooter, shutting that down, chasing that shooter down into the drive, and then rotating over to the big. Like, that type of defensive versatility and activity is very taxing on the body. And I'm not surprised at all that since the Raptors traded away OG Anunoby, here's a fun fact for you. Let me pull this off, and then, we'll get to a little bit of the game tape. So to start the season last year, if y'all remember, Scottie Barnes was shooting roughly 39% from 3 for the first 3 months. That's October, November, December, those 3 months. Okay. That was a pretty sizable sample of games. It was over 30 games. It was 33, 35 games, whatever. It's a pretty decent sample size, 39% from 3, decent volume. All of it topped off with a 7 of 15 3-point performance against the Boston Celtics. So really just giving the Celtics a taste of their own medicine. And then here's a really surprising stat. Every single month since that trade of OG Anunoby, there's not one month, not the January, not the February. Okay, technically you can count March, but he only played 1 game in March, so let's scrap that. And no month this year where he's been over 30% from 3. Not one month. I'll remind you that 30% from 3 is still a really bad percentage. I'll tell you right now, if he's shooting 30% from 3, no one's guarding him. He has not hit 30% once. Not the January, not the February. So that you can take in the entire year and a half that Emmanuel Quickley and RJ Barrett have been here. There's not one month where he has been above 30% or even close. Most of the months it's 27, 26, and this month it's 20. So this is bad. And it's not magical. You don't just go from, you don't just have this type of stretch of just sustained horrible defense. But I do think that since OG Anunoby has been gone, his role defensively has changed drastically. And it has been very common to see him just huffing and puffing, because not only does the Siakam going out bump you up offensively. So now you don't really have much of a crutch to fall back on offensively. You're clearly the guy, and you got to generate a lot more offense, which is more taxing on your body. But the loss of OG now makes you the best defender on your team by far. And now you're sticking, like 34, 35, 36 minutes of energy onto like not only protecting the rim because your center is a little deficient there, but also guarding the perimeter and just trying to keep your team afloat defensively. And I do think the Raptors have been so much better defensively with Scottie, in the games than without him. But I also think that they need to figure this out because if he's going to take that step up offensively that we all want him to take, I don't think he can take on this type of load defensively, right? Be real, man. You know what? I read this as being so much more offensive. I read it as be a real man, and I was just about to ban you so quick. Okay, be real, man. Just look at Scottie's jump shot. He can never be a 35% three-point shooter. 39% was a fluke, never happening again. How do you respond to comments like this? I don't know. I don't know how to respond to comments like this. Be real, man. I don't know. What's your basketball? What's your basketball pedigree? I don't know. You be real, man. Like, he can never be a 35% three-point shooter? Okay, cool. I mean, you realize Draymond Green is shooting 35% from three right now? Like, shooting form is suspect. I don't think it's suspect. I think it's a little inconsistent. But maybe you can let us know. Maybe you can let us know what your pedigree is in terms of gauging basketball forms. Like, you seem to know some stuff. So, let's try to understand it. Like, what is your basis for assessing his future shooting potential based on his current form? Like, let's figure it out. You're talking with a lot of conviction, so I'm assuming behind the conviction is probably some knowledge. Let us pray. Okay, let's check this out. Okay, let's. All right. Okay. Okay. So this play is the play, it involves an Ochai Agbaji screen on Donovan Clingan, if I recall correctly. So immediately the spacing is just weird, right? You got Jakob parking up next to, and you're thinking this is just a clear out for Scottie to drive, but it's not. It's a misdirection. And here, Ochai Agbaji cuts through. They're not responding to Jakob Pertl because they don't expect him to take this shot. And then Ochai, little late contest there by Donovan Clingan, and it bounces in. Two of the greatest predictors. Not that this dude, he looks like robot. He shoots like robot. Okay, whatever, man. Two of the greatest predictors for three-point shooting projections are free throw shooting and touch, like touch in the mid-range, touch around the long mid-range. Scottie's had some really, really encouraging moments from there. And I also think he's been, like, since the new year, he's been like north of 83% from the free throw line. There's nothing to suggest that Scottie cannot be a 35% three-point shooter. But you do you, boo-boo. Like, you just, continue to say that stuff. I'm sure it's just motivation for him. All right. Okay. I love this play. Look at, okay, there are plenty of times this year where I feel like Scottie does not play with enough verve, to use that word. I feel like this is the type of energy that he needs to play with. Boom. Pushing, and he's the best on the team at doing that. Maybe the second best is Jamal Shed, but like, he's great at that, man. And I like, boom, here you go. And again, this is very Giannis like, in terms of just and just look. And again, it's the burst. We noticed this in the last game that he was just a lot burstier. So this is how fast you have to be. Right now, he looks very athletic. And here he takes a shot blocker right at the rim and finishes right over him. Beautiful. I would still like to see him take it more into the body than away from the body, but overall, very cool. And this, this is some Shea stuff right here, right? Now, it's hard not to watch Shea Gilgeous-Alexander and start to imagine what if your favorite player could do what Shea does. And I don't think that it really comes down to mimicking all of what Shea does, but taking some of what makes Shea so impressive. It's the deceleration, it's the change of pace, it's the understanding of what you're doing wrong. See, there's a lot of offensive players out there who kind of make up their mind like this is going to be my hezzy cross, boom, turn around jumper. That's Scottie Barnes in a nutshell. He doesn't have that sort of instinct to say, okay, they're going left. Let me float my weight the other way. Has he pump? If they do this, then I'm going to do this. If they do this, then I'm going to do that. Seems too complicated. So right now, he's basically on the first layer of figuring out offensive production. So it's like, okay, I can figure out like I want this in the block. And if they double, I'm gonna make a pass and we'll see a play of him doing that. But to feel that defense kind of shifting left and then to bait them, manipulate them, and then go the other way, that stuff requires phenomenal body control. And it requires a lot of reps and it requires a lot of, probably a lot of time honing your craft in the gym. But overall, like when you see Shea, his control of his body is so elite. Like if you watched that game yesterday with Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, and if you joined us on playback, you got to see it. You got to watch it with me. Shea like put the Detroit Pistons in a body bag to end the game. And I'm not saying this play was Shea like because it's not nearly as fluid or as impressive, but this is the kind of stuff that Shea does all the time. You have your hand in the cookie jar right now, right? So what I got to do right now is I got to get the refs to blow the whistle here, and the way to do that is to go through you, right? And that's Tamani Kamara. He's not a bad defender. He doesn't make a lot of mistakes, but this was Scottie baiting him into doing that. Now here, Ochai Agbaji, hey man, that ankle looks great. Nice play from Jamal Shed, really good. All right. Now, this is the type of clip that usually gets us a copyright strike. So let me just break this down very slowly. Okay. So here, AJ Lawson guards the initial drive. Denny Avdia. Avdia passes out to Shaden Sharp. That's on Colin Castleton. Close out. He does. Here, Sharp now gets past Castleton, and there's Lawson back there to help the helper. And now Castleton gets right back on Denny Avdia, tags him. There's a switch. Then they try to set this whole thing up again. Lawson does a good job containing the drive. As he picks up his dribble, here's going to come Colin Castleton with a little bit of a. Okay, sorry. They passes it over to Denny Avdia. And here, Castleton is going to he's going to pressure him in the corner. And you can see the Raptors never. Sorry, I'm trying so hard not to get a copyright strike, so I'm sort of like lagging here. But yeah, here Castleton just bodies up, stops the drive, and here they send two to the ball, which leaves an open shooter. Oh, man, okay, this is going too fast. Hang on, let me try this here. Boom. Let me try this again. Sorry, guys. This play is so frigging. It's like 16 seconds long. Let me just try this. Okay. So here comes Castleton, defends, Lawson doubles. Here, the pass is taken away by Castleton, sort of playing the passing lane, passes out to Scoot Henderson. Garrett Temple does a pretty good job of angling him away. So he makes sure that he drives right into Castleton, which is going to work out in the Raptors' favor, and it results in a turnover for Scoot Henderson. This is perfect defense. Sorry about the choppy nature of breaking that down. My bad, guys. I apologize. But yes, the point is that was one of the best defensive possessions that I've seen all year. For 16 seconds, it was just perfect. And here, again, Scottie Barnes sees, Chris Murray, Tamani Kamara's there, help, takes two defenders and passes it over to a wide open Orlando Robinson. just a great drive and dish. And that's what you get when you get to the paint. And here, Scottie, once again, going right into the paint. And this was a coast to coast all the way, getting doubled and tripled along the way. Doesn't matter. Takes it right over the defense. I still feel like these finishes are a little bit rushed and a little bit off balance. And maybe he needs to get a little bit stronger. Maybe he just needs to get his layup package a little bit better. Maybe the touch is never going to be as great as I want it to be, but I feel like there's still something more that can be done there. Here, it's so interesting. Jakob Poeltl is the vet. Donovan Clingan is the rookie. Jakob Poeltl looks like a Make-A-Wish kid here next to Donovan Clingan. It's just so weird to see how big Donovan Clingan is. Like, do you see what I mean? Like, jeez. Yak looks like a guard next to Donovan Clingan. Like, he's a legit 7-footer, and Donovan Clingan just it looks so much bigger than him. And here, Donovan Clingan not backing down, did not appreciate getting wrapped up on that play, and gives Yak a little bit of a shove there. Okay. Now here, this is what happens. We talk about this all the time about, like, who is Scottie and as a player and what he needs to work on. But here's one thing that I know is probably his biggest gift and probably the thing that makes me most encouraged about building an offense around him. You can't double him. Here, you have two very long defenders, Matisse Thybulle, and you have Chris Murray doubling. And these are event creators defensively, especially Matisse Thybulle. We know this guy has go-go gadget arms. He is really great at poking the ball away. And here, Scottie is going to find this pass. He fakes the pass to Garrett Temple, which gets everybody off balance thinking it's going one way. And then he makes a no-look pass to Colin Castleton. Like the easiest shot of Colin Castleton's life, but really, like, that's just brilliant. And here, the Raptors routinely played Jakob with either Castleton or Orlando Robinson. Usually Darko hasn't really gone to two big lineups, but he's been doing a lot more of that. And you know what? I know that it's gonna be, Jakob with the dunk here, but good job by Colin Castleton for giving him an outlet. Just in case Toumani Camara got in the way or tried to draw a charge, Castleton is giving him a really good window to make this pass over the top. And, can't be in two places at once, can't guard two players at once. Castleton made it hard for Toumani Camara to commit. And here, the Raptors down 4, I believe. And here comes a 3 from Jamison Battle, really clutch. Wasn't having the greatest game up until that point. And then the Blazers do make it a 3-point game. The Raptors had to foul. There were 16 seconds left on the clock. The Raptors waited until the 5-second mark to finally foul, which I thought was very interesting. Like, you probably foul a lot sooner than that if you're trying to win the game, but the Raptors aren't trying to win the game. So here comes the play. A Colin Castleton inbound to a seemingly open Orlando Robinson. Very risky play, might I add. Very risky play by Matisse Thybulle here. I don't think enough people talk about how rare it is to block a 3-point shot. I mean, shoot. You're talking about like a guy who is at best a 20% 3-point shooter, and you might have just fouled him. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's risky. That's risky. I didn't think about that in the moment. You're just thinking like, great, he made the block, the Raptors tank is alive, et cetera, but damn. Does he have 50 pounds on him? There's no way. I feel like Jakob is like 250-ish. Clingan's not 300 pounds, is he? I think Clingan's about 265, 270, but yeah, I feel like he's just so big. Such a big human being. So, okay. Couple things to think about here. The Brooklyn Nets won today. Is he really 290? Say word. Wow. He should probably lose some weight. I say that just because he's 7'3" and he's already had a history of lower body injuries. So if he wants to stay healthy, he's probably going to have to be around 270. Fent Jones saying, Penn, looking forward to seeing you cook in the PCO. I'm going to need y'all to pull up on Wednesday. Let me tell you what's on the line. In round one, there's some pride on the line because there's a dude that I straight up told was not going to make it out of the first round named, what the hell is his name? Finesse West. I already feel like this NPC is licking his chops at the upset. Cannot have that happen. There's also something else on the line that is very grand, and it is $5,000. It is a chance at $5,000. And you know what? Do the math here. It's a round of 32. You go to 16. That's one win. Go to 16 to 8. That's two wins. You go from 8 to 4. That's three wins. You go from 4 to 2. That's four wins. Wait, am I right? Have I lost my mind already? 4 to 2, and then 2 to 1 is 5 wins. I think I need 5 wins to make $5,000. And I trust myself as a debater. I know my shit, and I will prepare. So I'm gonna need y'all to pull up to the PCO and make sure to drown out some of the haters in the chat, because there will be some haters in the chat for sure. I have absolute faith in Penn. I appreciate you. I mean, I have there's no shit talk at this point. Last year I was all like, I'm a win, and then it didn't work out that way. But I will learn from those mistakes, and I will see what's up. I thought Jordan and Carson today was fire. It was a really good one, and we'll see. But yes, you got to prepare. Must prepare. Cannot come in and just wing it. And you know what? Like, you think about it, you're like, if you think about it for real, think about the return on investment. You prepare for the debate. You come out, you have a 3 to 5, 6 minutes of talking in these debates. You nail it. You know, you make sure you present yourself well. You're not stammering. You're not repeating yourself. You're not cocky, arrogant, condescending. You're hearing the facts. You're repeating the facts. You're stating the facts. You're organizing the facts correctly. This is about the easiest $5,000 you'd ever make in your life, if you play it right, obviously. Now, at some point, you are going to come across someone who's just probably just really prepared, and you're going to have to work for it. It's going to be a toss up, but shoot, it's like the second place got some money too. Third place gets some money too. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was like $500, $1,500, and $3,000, something like that. I don't know. Anyways, it is US though. It is, I want to mention that it's $5,000 US. So I feel like at that point, that's like $1 million Canadian right now, isn't it? We'll see. Overall, this is a good day for the Raptors tank, obviously. Not a great day for the Raptors' second round pick from the Portland Trailblazers, because you did just beat the Portland Trailblazers. But I feel like the Portland Trailblazers have a lot of losses coming ahead, you know, once they become mathematically eliminated in the playoffs, if that day does come. I mean, shoot, they could still make the playoffs. That's the crazy part. They could still make the play-in with how bad the Dallas Mavericks are doing right now. The Mavericks could fall out. The Blazers could rise up. We could take a look at the standings very briefly if y'all want. But I think overall, like, it's a good day because, you know, you do have the, you know, the Raptors lose on a day that the Bucks, sorry, not the Bucks, the Nets won. So let's just take a look here. In terms of the standings, yes, the Raptors are 24 and 44 right now, just losing one. But both the Sixers and the Nets did win one. So that's huge. Okay. And you maintain a 4.5 game separation between yourself and the Chicago Bulls. 4.5 games is not an insurmountable, you know, thing to come back from. You have about 14 games left in the season. It's not impossible. If the Bulls completely free fall at this point, yes, it's possible. But I think the Raptors can really help themselves out big time. Big time. So if you look at the Raptors schedule upcoming, you got Phoenix, you got Golden State. Those are very losable games. Okay. This is like, you have been gift wrapped a 3-game losing streak right here. And you need to take it. That's very important, because you might have a 5-game winning streak coming up right after that. San Antonio is in free fall. They have had, you know, De'Aaron Fox with Victor Wembanyama out. So, and you're the home team. I feel like in these tankathon matchups, very often it kind of comes down to which team is willing to be more shameless, and that tends to be the road team. You know, so you got San Antonio. So let's see how many games you got left. You got Phoenix, Golden State. Those should be 2 losses. So you can tack those on as 2 losses. That's 46 losses. Okay. After that, you probably find a way to lose against Portland again. You probably find a way to lose against Detroit. That's 48 losses. The rest of these, could all be wins, man. They could all be wins. So at which point, I still believe that you're playing, shots very much there. Because I would like to see what the Chicago Bulls schedule looks like, because it does not feel like anybody has an easier schedule than the Raptors right now. The Bulls have the Utah Jazz next. Then they have Phoenix, Sacramento, Los Angeles, Denver, LA, Dallas, OKC, Toronto, Portland, Charlotte, Cleveland, Miami, Washington, Philly. Yeah. So you could end up in a real situation where you win 9 games and they win 7 games and they still make the play-in. But if you win 9 and they win 4, you're making the play-in by default. So you're not out of the woods yet. I think that's very, very important to realize. In terms of just something that I said yesterday on X that I'll repeat here, and I apologize. I remain a little bit sick, and I'm really, really trying to rest my voice right now because I don't want to be trying to, manage a cough and then have a flu game during the PCL on Wednesday. So, I also got some what the hell is it called? I also got some playback responsibilities this week, so that's going to be fun too. I believe I'm on playback Wednesday, Friday. I'm on playback a lot, so that's going to be fun. But nevertheless, I said something on X. I'll repeat it here, and that was mainly just the players in this draft that are very exciting, and there's a lot, and there's a lot. And I feel like the people who've kind of bought into this, hype machine of, oh, it's just Cooper Flag and Dylan Harper, you're wrong. I think players 3 to 10, I'm going to give you some names that I'm really excited about. I'm really excited about VJ Edgecombe. I'm really excited. I'm not super excited about Ace Bailey, but I'm excited about the fact that he'll probably go top 5 and the Raptors won't pick him. That could be cool, right? You got Kamal Malawach. There's a couple players that we really haven't talked about. Noah Asenge is very interesting, as I want to almost liken him to a Pascal Siakam type. I think the beautiful thing about him would be that he would be like a real natural 4-5, and the Raptors don't really have one. You know what I mean? Like, you look at the core pieces on this team, you see a lot of 4-3s, you see a lot of 3-4s, you don't see a lot of 4-5s. You definitely don't see a lot of 5s. You don't see a lot of 4-5s. Even Ulrich is like a 5-4. There really isn't a pure power forward on this team. I think there's a lot of hybrid combo forwards like Brandon Ingram, Scottie Barnes, guys like that. But, and even Jonathan Mobo. But a real 4, I think he's really cool. And, he could present that type of athletic upside that could really be unlocked at the NBA level, And then you got Jeremiah Fears, who I feel like, watching him play a lot over the last couple of days, just doing a lot of catch-up scouting, I'm seeing a lot of stuff that will translate very well to the NBA level. A little bit undersized at about 6'3.5", 6'4". I wonder if he has some future point guard skills, but his ability to like shift the defense, his ability to contort his body, his ability to finish through contact, his athleticism. Like, I'm not saying he's Russell Westbrook, but he has a lot of qualities that Russell Westbrook, James Harden, guys like this had. And I think the athletic testing, the wingspan, all that stuff will be important. I'll be very curious to see more of his defense. But that's like a real shot creator type. He is definitely on a different level as a prospect, in my opinion. And he's so young, right? So again, there's so much upside at this draft that you really do have like a Donovan Mitchell probably or a Devin Booker type waiting at pick 11 to 13. And I hope for the Raptors' sake that they find that dude. They are going to find like a real quality talent in this draft. So it doesn't like obviously, you want to pick higher. Yeah, you'd rather pick fifth than eighth. You'd rather pick eighth than 10th. But I feel like wherever the Raptors pick in this draft, they're going to get a real foundational piece that's going to push one of the players that we think right now as a foundational piece out within a year. And it's not a bad problem to have. The Raptors have a lot of depth, and they've traded a lot of nothing for something in Brandon Ingram, which I think is going to bump somebody out. They've done a lot of reverse consolidation trades, right? For Pascal Siakam, they ended up getting Jonathan Mobo. Sorry, for OG Anunoby, basically, Precious Achiuwa, Malachi Flynn. They ended up getting three pieces that have actually stuck, which is Emmanuel Quickley, RJ Barrett, and Jonathan Mobo. In the Pascal trade, they ended up getting Bruce Brown as a centerpiece, but then those three picks, one of those picks turned into Jacoby Walter. One of those picks turned into Brandon Ingram, which is, in a nutshell, the main piece that went out in that deal, the most valuable piece that went out in the trade for Brandon Ingram was that. And they ended up using one of them on Jacoby Walter. So once again, that's three wings, three major, contributing rotation level wings, at least going into next season. I think we can all agree that Brandon Ingram and Jacoby Walter and Ochai Agbaji are all rotation players. I think we can agree that at least 2 out of 3 players that came back for OG Anunoby are rotation players. And I think we can all be hopefully also agree that the Raptors turned a lot of nothing into something with Ulrich and Jamison Battle and Jamal Shed. So, you turn non-rotation players like Jalen McDaniels into an actual something, and then you got an extra second round pick for Davion Mitchell, and Davion Mitchell was basically free. You were basically paid to take on his contract. And so, in terms of asset management, the Raptors are getting very deep, and depth is good because at some point you will stop doing 1 for 3s and start doing 3 for 1s. And that's kind of what you did in the Brandon Ingram trade, right? You took 3 assets, Kelly Olynyk acquired in that trade, with Utah last year. You took Bruce Brown, acquired in the trade last year for Pascal Siakam, and you took the Pacers 2026 pick, same thing, acquired in the Pascal trade, and you traded it for Brandon Ingram. Okay, so now what happens when you trade a Grady Dick and an RJ Barrett and a future first and get like a real star center? Or you trade Jakob Poeltl plus a first round pick plus Ochai Agbaji and you get a franchise level point guard. I don't know, like whatever. My point is the Raptors finally have the pieces to maintain depth and still make a consolidation 3 for 1 trade. They, in fact, could make multiple 3 for 1 trades without completely gutting their depth. A testament, by the way, to how well they have constructed this roster, but also how well they're developing this roster. And this is especially true if AJ Lawson or Jared Roden or Ulrich turn into anything of consequence for you. Like right now, you have like 5 flyers at the end of your roster in Ulrich, Roden, Robinson, Lawson, Battle, right? Like these are just guys on the periphery. You get to monitor them all summer. So if one of them or 2 of them or 3 of them take a step up into, they could be the 9th guy, 10th guy, if they take a major jump and they're all young enough that they could, now that's really just, you're just piling up a really good problem to have, which is now you have like, sorry if I'm being a little bit disorganized with my thoughts. I guess what I'm trying to say is it's kind of like the Portland Trailblazers, right? They have all these players. They don't have a franchise player. They were hoping maybe Scoot Henderson become that franchise player. Maybe they're hoping their draft pick this year could become the franchise player. Maybe they were hoping Shaden Sharp or Anthony Simons or one of those guys would step in and be the franchise player. But at some point, you do have to acknowledge that they have like this player type that is very valuable, which is like a depth piece. And they have like 10 guys on this team that could be like the seventh best player in a playoff rotation. Denny Avdia, Jeremy Grant, Robert Williams, shoot, there's so many. Donovan Clingan. You just look down that roster and you're like, damn, that's great. If they ever figure it out with a star, they're right there. Because there's so many teams out there that they think star, 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 and then they gut their depth, and then what do you have? I think the Raptors probably need to consolidate and then maybe, post consolidation, figure out a way to sign a stretch big. I think there's a couple of stretch bigs on the market this summer, Naz Reid and Miles Turner. I wonder if the Raptors could make a play for either one of them. They don't really have the cap space. They kind of, already parked their cap space into, extensions for Scottie Barnes and Manuel Quickly, and of course the very expensive Brandon Ingram. But yeah, I mean, I'm curious to see if like how this roster will sort of come together, because as it looks right now, there's like 13 guys who should get minutes next year. If you want to look at it, let's just count them out. The 5 starters, okay, which is BI, Scottie, RJ, IQ, Yak. That's 5. That's guaranteed 5 players getting minutes, right? No disagreements there. Grady, that's 6. 100%. Draft pick coming in, top 10 pick, that's 7. So you got 7 for sure. Ochai, is that 8? Has Ochai done enough this year that you could say definitively he is a rotation player? Yes. Jacoby Walter, has he done enough? That's at least 9. Jamal Shed, is that at least 10? And now look at the rest. Look at the rest of the players and figure out which 1, 2, 3, 4 of those players could potentially pop for you. And you might be 14 deep next year. And that's not like a crazy thing to say. Like you really could be 14 deep next year. If Ulrich and Mobo take a step, like you really legitimately are like 13 to 14 deep next year. If AJ Lawson continues, I mean, AJ Lawson struggled hard tonight. And I'm not saying that I think AJ or Jared or, Colin or Orlando are going to be anything other than maybe 1 or 2 of those guys make a camp deal. But let's also not rule out the fact that the Raptors have been exceptional at drafting in the second round, and they have a pretty high second round pick this year. So maybe they find a rotation player there as well. Maybe an older college player, maybe a 3rd year, 4th year type of college player like a Jamal Shed, but maybe, even better than Jamal Shed. He comes in, he rocks it out. I don't know. The Raptors are expensive, but they are also deep, which is much better than being expensive and not deep. Look at the Phoenix Suns, who the Raptors play in the next game. So how worried are you about Ed Rogers? Not as worried as I am about Trump, but I am seeing a trend. If we don't land a top 5 pick, did you see us trading that pick? No. I would be more. If the Raptors picked 4th, if the Raptors got like the 4th pick, I could see them trading it. If they get like the 8th pick, I don't see them trading it. Does that make sense? I'm more likely to say they're going to trade the 4th pick than the 8th pick. One, the 4th pick usually commands a higher offer. And second, I really do think the Raptors are very high on the mid lottery. Shea is the best player in the world. He's certainly looking like it right now, isn't he? He's been great. Shea has been so incredible, man. I got to tell you, like with all the stuff that's happening with Canada and US right now, there's been some notice that a lot of people are looking to remove American flags, American anthem getting routinely booed at every single Raptor game and Leaf game and, all the Canadian hockey games. There seems to be like a real animosity building between these two countries right now. And I just want to say that in the midst of all of this, it's pretty cool to know that at some point, the largest American league for basketball in the world, actually the largest league in the world, is going to announce a Canadian as the MVP. That's pretty cool. So I'm gonna just knock on wood and pray that nothing happens between now and then. But with the recent struggles of the Denver Nuggets, who, by the way, lost on a Jordan Poole 3 last night to the Wizards, to the lowly Wizards, which is amazing because I believe that loss catapulted. Am I correct in saying that loss catapulted the Utah Jazz to the worst team in the league? It's hard to imagine that any team could have out-tanked the Wizards given how bad the Wizards were earlier this season, but here we are. The Utah Jazz are officially the worst team in the league right now. Yikes. Like, Washington better watch out, Like, you lose so much this year, you make a trade for Chris Middleton, you make a trade for Marcus Smart, and look what happens. Suddenly, you're beating Denver on the fucking road. Like, the craziest part about this is that this is exactly what I was saying was going to happen. Like, players like Marcus Smart, and like, people may not rate the difference between a Marcus Smart and, someone like a Grady Dick. But if Marcus Smart was on this team instead of Grady Dick, and I'm not even saying Marcus Smart is some great player, but just he knows how to play basketball. He's like a pro basketball player. He doesn't make mistakes. He's so much better defensively than Grady. Like, the difference between Marcus Smart and Grady Dick might be like 8 wins. And the funny thing is, when you watch him play, you might even be tricked into thinking Grady's a better player. What I'm saying is youth often loses in the NBA. It's usually really hard to win with youth. And so the only thing that a team that really wants to shift perspective away from losing to winning often just has to do is add a few Malik Beasleys, Tim Hardaways, Chris Middletons, and these guys are not expensive. They're being tossed away. But 2 or 3 guys like this in your key rotation makes the world of difference. If you want a good Raptors example of this, not even guys with a ton of NBA experience, but do you remember what happened to the Raptors the year they got Andrea Bargnani? And then they added Rashan Nesterovic, Tony Parker, Jorge Garbajosa, and those were 3 starters. And then they put in TJ Ford around Chris Bosh. So they basically swapped 4 new starters around Bosh. And yeah, they struggled to start the season, but when they caught fire, like, that team went on a run, and it was one of the most fun times to be a Raptor fan. We don't ever talk about that time. We talk about Vince, we talk about We the North. We skip over the absolute renaissance that was 06, 07. It was one of my favorite Raptor teams of all time. And in large part, it was just because you had a whole bunch of players who knew how to play basketball. That's really what it was. Jose Calderon just really knew how to play basketball. Jorge Garbajosa just really knew how to play basketball. So yeah, those guys. And ironically, We the North was sparked by just a whole bunch of guys who knew how to play basketball, right? Kyle Lowry, John Salmons, Chuck Hayes, Gravis Vasquez, Patrick Patterson, just a bunch of dudes who knew how to play basketball. That's what it was. So, like, at this point, I feel like the Raptors have been farming for talent in the draft, and they're getting all these young players, and we're getting very attached to these young players. But at some point, don't be surprised if some of these young players get traded for, a couple of win now pieces. And it's kind of interesting because the Raptors have managed to keep a couple of win now pieces, a couple of veterans around. Chris Boucher. I don't know if Chris Boucher is on this roster next year. I really don't. But if he is, that's another rotation piece. There's 11. You know what I mean? Like, I certainly wouldn't feel nice about Chris Boucher signing with a minimum somewhere else. That would really piss me off because he is definitely good enough to command a minimum contract from the Raptors. And he wants to be here. That's the worst part. He really wants to be here, and he's done a lot to fit in. So I don't know, man. It's just strange. The Raptors have, like, if the Raptors wanted to win tonight, they win tonight. How many wins would the Raptors have if they were trying to win this year? Probably like 32. They would definitively be like the 8th or 9th seed. Definitively. 100%. They might be the 7th seed right now. If they were trying to win all year and they didn't have this abysmal health and they actually tried to play Brandon Ingram, they would be like the 7th seed. So that's who you really are. Forget the tank. Forget all the, stupid shit that the rotations have done this year. Like, who are you really? You're probably around a 500 team right now. So development from Scottie, development from IQ, development from the young players, development from Grady, development from, one more smart trade, a top 6, top 7 pick. Boom. There you go. There you are, your 50-win team. Hopefully, your 50-win team. Yikes. Raptors coaching staff able to turn G League players into second best defense in the NBA since 1st of March. I mean, the scheme is working. I mean, you didn't really have much of a scheme. It's interesting. If I told you that you traded away Bruce Brown, Kelly Olynyk, and Davion Mitchell, and you basically replaced their minutes with a whole bunch of G League guys, you wouldn't assume that that would result in a monumental boost to your defense. There was a time this year when the Raptors were like the 26th, 27th, 28th defense. Do you remember those times? Yeah. Seems like, Grady Dick not playing really helps your defense. That's been pretty consistent. But even with Grady playing, they've been pretty okay defensively because this defensive uptick has extended all the way back to like mid-January. Where's awful coaching now? Probably still not super happy with their defense. I wouldn't hold my breath. Strength of schedule has something to do with that increase in defense. That's fair. That's fair. But let me just look at who the Raptors have actually faced during that stretch. So their defensive uptick started on January 13th. Golden State, Boston, Milwaukee, Orlando, Atlanta. I mean, do you remember how good this team was defensively during that stretch? That's a pretty competitive group of teams to face. You also had Oklahoma City, Memphis, New York, the Clippers, the Bulls. Okay, yeah, you also had the Washington Wizards and the Pelicans in there. You had the Houston Rockets, the Sixers, Cleveland, Phoenix, Boston, Indiana, Miami, in overtime, 2 games against Orlando. I don't think it's just strength of schedule, my dude. Like the worst of your schedule is yet to come. Like this is the easiest part of your schedule right here. Granted, you can argue this right here has been super easy. You could argue that. But it really, like, your schedule really turned on March 7th, where it got super easy. And you've been great defensively since January 15th. So I don't think that is fair to say it's just because of that. But that's not what you said. You said it's partially because of that. And I agree with that. It's partially because of strength of schedule. But I think it's mostly due to the Raptors just being much better communicating, Yak being better, Scottie just dialing it up, demon time on defense. Like I think he has just taken a super step defensively. And I feel like people aren't really going to notice it because the Raptors aren't a very good team. They're not going to make the playoffs, et cetera, et cetera. But next year, with Brandon Ingram taking some of that load off of him offensively, I have a feeling Scottie has a chance to chase like best perimeter defender in the league title. I don't think he is the best perimeter defender in the league. I'm gonna be honest. Like I hold quite a few perimeter defenders in very high regard. Dyson Daniels is one of them. Chris Dunn. There's so many. Herb Jones. But I feel like if he could enter that conversation with those guys, that'd be great. Yeah. This is my comment of the night. This is awesome. Yes, I agree. Thank you, Vince Carter, for telling Scottie Barnes to tape up his ankles because every game I see those ankles and I see those ankle braces on, and I'm like, good for you. Because right now we are seeing Scottie move about as well as we have seen him move since his rookie season, maybe. Okay. Like he is moving with burst. He's moving with confidence. He's moving like a guy who, touch wood, is not afraid that he's about to tweak his ankle every time he moves. And I think that those ankle braces are giving him a ton of assurance and just confidence that he can move around freely around the court without tweaking his ankles every 10 seconds. So, again, just a really big player with really big feet. Sometimes you need a little extra assurance. I was surprised when I found out that he didn't tape his ankles before every single game. This is crucial. Like players tape their ankles, man. So, yeah, super important. And I'm really glad that it's paying off for him. We haven't touched wood. Again, I'm going to touch wood again. So definitely do not want to see Scottie Barnes get injured. It's been really cool to see, a string of games now where he has not, at least to my recollection, come up gimpy, rolling an ankle. That's been really cool. So yes. Springer said Scottie needs to work on his hips in the offseason so the ankle problems won't come back. Underrated comment as well. I completely agree with this. I think his hips are probably a bigger issue. And if he could work on his hips a little bit to like open them up a little bit, get them a little bit looser. I don't feel like he's inflexible, but I feel like there's something there that needs to be worked on. I'm not smart enough to even talk about, but I do know trainers who have, mentioned this to me for sure with Scotty. That would be a game changer for him as well, you know? Yeah, I agree. Haven't seen that burst in a while. Yeah, and I mean, he does do yoga. That's the funny part. He does do yoga. He does a lot of stretching. I just think, again, like it's the complexity of, if you think about like players, the proportions of players who are really shifty, they're not usually players with super long legs. You really don't see a lot of players in the league that have his proportions. He has the legs of a 7-footer. So you want him to move like someone who's 6'6" when he's 6'9", and you want him to be spry and springy. Like, if you stood him right next to LeBron James, I guarantee you his legs are coming up to like well past LeBron's waist, like well past LeBron's waist. You know, he's just weirdly proportioned as an athlete. I've talked about it numerous times where his arms and his legs are just so huge. So, maybe it'll just take a little bit longer for him to figure it out. But, these are advantages. Like having long legs and those big strides can be a huge advantage, you know? I agree. My ex-girlfriend used to be a yoga instructor. My current girlfriend is a yoga instructor. No matter how much I don't like yoga myself, can't seem to get away from it. So, yes, Scotty is not 6'9". Stop over this. Uh, I've seen him standing next to Paolo, who's a legit 6'10", and you could barely tell who is taller between them. So, yeah, he's at least 6'8.5" without shoes. He's huge. Like when you saw him standing next to Cade Cunningham, like I've seen pictures of Cade and Scotty with Scotty's dad. Um, in I want to say 2018. So I saw a picture of those three, and Scotty was like this is Scotty's shoulder, like this is Cade's shoulder, this is Scotty's shoulder. Like there was a 2-inch gap in their shoulders. So Cade's a legit 6'6.5". Scotty's a legit 6'8.5". Legit. Yeah, Scotty's 6'9". When you see him standing next to a 7-footer, he looks shorter. When you see him standing next to someone who's 6'6", he looks way taller. Yeah, he's 6'9". Anyways, all right. Thank y'all for joining the stream. As always, I will catch you during the next game, which is holy shit. It's tomorrow. It's tomorrow night against the Phoenix Suns. And then we get 3 games, 3 days off, and then we got a Thursday game against the Golden State Warriors. Honestly, unbelievable. Tomorrow night, tickets as low as $13. And here's a fun thing. At Washington, tickets low as $5. Here's an even funnier thing. If you go to Philly, tickets as low as $3. Oh my god. Hold on. I got to see this. This is real. $3 tickets. Help me understand this. Oh my god. For $5 Canadian. You could watch the Raptors play in Philadelphia for $5. Okay. Yikes. This is what tanking teams are doing. Pay note. But if you wanted to watch the Raptors play against San Antonio with no Wemby and no Fox in Canada, you have to pay at least $31. No, that's 31 US. $64. Fuck MLSE, man. Are you kidding me right now? This is why I'll never get a media pass because I say things like fuck MLSE. That's crazy. That's crazy, man. With everything Canada's going through, with the, like MLSE is still lining up their pockets with this absolutely bullshit ass. I don't even say bullshit ass team because I have nothing against the team, but it is really absolutely bullshit to know that you have a team that is going out there deliberately resting starters and is going to hold out players, and you're going to be feasting your eyes on the AJ Lawson and Colin Castleton show, and you're going to pay $64 for it. You know what? That's what it is. That's what it is. I don't even think that's even close, man. I think the Mavericks should have cut their price in half based on the popularity of that team. But yeah, anyways, I'll talk to y'all later. Have a great night. Enjoy yourselves. And yes, talk to you later.